You can spend an entire day doing almost nothing dramatic and still feel completely emptied out by night. That kind of tiredness confuses people, especially when they cannot see what your mind has been carrying. You answered texts. You sat through a normal conversation. You walked through a store, drove home, and made dinner. And somehow your body feels finished, not because life was loud on the outside, but because something in you was taking in more than anyone noticed. That is the part most people miss. Some exhaustion does not come from action. It comes from absorption. You absorb tone before words. You absorb tension before conflict. You absorb the tiny shift in someone's face before they even know what they are feeling. So while other people move through the day, you are reading the weather inside every room. You are tracking pressure, softness, distance, expectation, and what is not being said. This is why a short interaction can leave you strangely drained. It was only 10 minutes, but your nervous system treated it like something much bigger. You were listening to the words, but also the pauses. You were noticing their energy, your response, and whether you were making them comfortable. Some people leave a conversation when it ends. You leave it hours later. You replay the expression you saw. You rethink the sentence you almost said. You wonder if they were hurt, distant, tired, annoyed, or simply distracted. And the strange part is that you may know this habit is unnecessary. But awareness does not always turn off just because logic asked nicely. Your system is still scanning, still sorting, still trying to make sense of emotional leftovers. That is why silence does not always feel restful. Sometimes, silence is when the backlog gets loud. The room is finally quiet, but your mind starts unpacking everything it postponed. The look at lunch, the tone in that email, the heaviness you felt near someone all afternoon. Now it is midnight, and your body wants sleep, but your mind is still processing what everyone else already dropped. This is one of the hidden costs of being deeply aware. You are not only living your own experience, you are also carrying impressions from the people, spaces, and moods around you. Your face stays calm, your voice stays steady. Meanwhile, inside, your system is sorting 1,000 tiny signals all at once. That is why people sometimes think you are handling things better than you actually are. You do not always look overwhelmed when you are overwhelmed. And because you can still function, nobody sees the cost. They see composure. They do not see the recovery time it takes to keep that composure intact. Sometimes the exhaustion shows up late. You get through the dinner, the meeting, the visit, the errands. Then you get home, close the door, and feel the real weight arrive. Your body sinks. Your thoughts scatter. Even small sounds suddenly feel like too much. You think, if I was fine earlier, why do I feel wrecked down? But delayed exhaustion is still real exhaustion. Some systems do not react in the moment. They hold steady first, then collapse and safety returns. That is why coming home can feel like finally hearing your own nervous system, not because home fixes everything, but because the buffering stops. During the day, part of you is always managing expression, managing sensitivity, managing how much of the room gets through. So when the managing ends, the impact finally lands. That is often the moment people call overreacting, when it is really just late arriving truth. You may notice this most around emotionally charged people, not only loud people, but unsettled people. The ones who say they are fine while radiating frustration, the ones who laugh while carrying sharpness underneath, the ones who make you feel tense without saying anything openly tense. Your shoulders tighten, your breathing changes, you become more careful with your words, more alert with your eyes, more tired without understanding why. Later, you call yourself dramatic. But what if you were simply accurate before you were articulate? A lot of people think exhaustion only comes from doing too much. But some exhaustion comes from noticing too much, from being mentally present in every layer, from monitoring the social temperature, reading subtleties, and adjusting yourself in response. That adjustment is exhausting, especially when it happens so automatically that you do not even realize you are doing it. You walk into a coffee shop and instantly clock the noise, the barista's rush tone, the couple arguing softly, the music that is just a little too sharp. Nothing is extreme, but your system registers all of it. You sit with friends and laugh at the right moments, yet one person's mood keeps brushing against your mind. You are enjoying yourself and still burning energy. You answer a simple message and spend 20 minutes deciding whether your wording felt cold. The conversation is over, but your brain keeps sanding the edges. This is how absorption works. It is rarely one huge thing. It is 100 small things with nowhere obvious to go. But your body does not measure only crisis, it also measures accumulation. The nervous system can get worn down by constant low-level intake. Too much noise, too much emotion, too much reading between the lines, too much staying open. Especially if you have spent years being the person who notices first, the person who senses when something is off, the person who keeps the peace before anyone asks. Because when you become used to sensing everyone, you stop noticing how rarely you fully leave that mode. You could be alone and still be carrying social energy from hours ago. You can be in bed and still be in the room you left, still replaying the smile that felt forced, still holding the mood that was never yours. This is why rest can feel strangely incomplete. Your body is home, but part of your mind is still elsewhere. Where your mind spent the whole day filtering tension, anticipating reactions, and collecting unfinished impressions, 8 hours of sleep may not fully reset that. You wake up with yesterday still on you. And that becomes its own private confusion. You wonder why you are tired before the day even starts. You have not done anything yet, but your system already feels occupied, like the engine never truly shut off. People who do not live this way often give simple advice. Care less. Stop overthinking. Do not take things so personally. But that misses the real pattern. For many sensitive, observant people, it is not a choice that happens after perception. It begins at perception. You notice fast. You process deeply. Then your mind tries to organize what your body already felt. And awareness becomes heavy when it has no boundary. When everything gets to enter, stay, echo, and ask for more processing on the way out. This is why some people feel strangely tired after being around perfectly decent people. No one did anything wrong. But your system was still active the entire time. Tracking reactions, smoothing edges, reading tone, monitoring yourself, and absorbing subtle tension that never became words. Even pleasant connection can be tiring when you experience it this deeply, especially if part of you is always making room for everyone else's state. That is the hidden inner busyness. You are not only talking, you are translating. You are translating energy into meaning. You are translating expressions into possible feelings. You are translating silence into what might be wrong. And all that translating costs attention. Attention costs energy. This is why you can look peaceful and still feel mentally loud. The outside version of you is edited. The inside version is busy, full of unfinished impressions, full of social residue, full of subtle alarms that never turned into emergencies but still asked your body to stay ready. That readiness becomes a habit, and habits this deep start to feel like personality. You may call yourself introverted, private, or easily drained. Those words may be true, but they are not the whole story. Sometimes what you call your personality is actually your recovery strategy. You need space because your system has been receiving all day. You need quiet because your mind is full of borrowed noise. You need slowness because you have been internally rushing for hours. And none of that means you are weak. It means your threshold gets used differently. People with lower awareness can stay energized longer in certain environments because less is entering at once. Your tiredness is not always lower strength. Sometimes it is higher intake. If you keep calling yourself lazy, antisocial, or too sensitive, you will miss the truth. Your exhaustion may be the natural price of constant inner processing. Still, this is not a romantic trait. Being perceptive sounds beautiful until you realize how often it steals your peace. It can make ordinary life feel dense. A normal week becomes mentally crowded. A simple outing becomes something you have to recover from. And the hardest part is that other people often only see your distance, not your saturation. They think you pull back because you do not care. Sometimes you pull back because you care too much, because your system does not know how to stay open forever without paying for it later. That is why the guilt can get so tangled. You want closeness, but closeness can cost you. You want to be present, but presence is rarely just presence for you. It becomes perception, empathy, adjustment, and afterthoughts that follow you home. So you begin rationing yourself, not because you are cold, but because you know how expensive being fully available can become. This is also why some of your deepest exhaustion has no obvious story attached to it. Nobody yelled. Nothing terrible happened. You were just around too much unspoken feeling, too much stimulation, too much subtle pressure with no clean release. That kind of tiredness is hard to explain. It sounds vague out loud, but it feels exact inside your body. You feel it in the long exhale at the kitchen counter, in the way your eyes go distant after social time, in the way you sit on the edge of the bed, not sad exactly, just full beyond language, like your mind has been carrying bags nobody else can see. And when you finally stop moving, everything you absorbed begins introducing itself. That is why evenings can feel heavier than the day deserved. The mind starts replaying, the body starts speaking, the truth you postponed all afternoon finally arrives. Sometimes it arrives as irritation, sometimes as numbness, sometimes as that strange urge to disappear into silence for a while. Not because you hate people, because your system needs a room where nothing else is entering. A deeply aware mind cannot keep absorbing without eventually becoming crowded. And a crowded inner life needs space, not judgment. The real shift happens when you stop asking, "Why am I this tired?" and start asking, "What have I been taking in all day?" That question changes everything. You begin to notice that certain voices stay in your body. Certain places leave static in your chest. Certain people make you feel responsible without saying the word responsible. Certain days are draining because you spent them bracing, translating, and softening yourself. Once you see that, your tiredness starts making sense. And when something makes sense, it becomes easier to meet with respect instead of shame. You stop forcing yourself to recover on other people's timeline. You stop pretending a quick break fixes a deeply used nervous system. You understand why one quiet hour sometimes does more for you than a whole distracted weekend. You understand why peace has to be felt, not scheduled. Most importantly, you stop calling your inner experience imaginary just because it is invisible. Invisible does not mean unreal. Some of the heaviest loads in life make no sound at all. They live in attention, anticipation, and the things you carry after everyone else has moved on. So if you have been wondering why you are tired in ways sleep does not explain, this may be part of the answer. You have been absorbing more than you realize. And maybe the deepest truth is this: your exhaustion is not always a sign that you are failing life. Sometimes it is a sign that life has been passing through you with unusual force, that you have been feeling, reading, holding, and processing far more than the day appeared to ask. There is nothing weak about needing time to clear what others barely notice. There is nothing excessive about wanting quiet after carrying so much invisible weight. You are not tired because you are incapable. You are tired because you have been open. Open to tone, pressure, atmosphere, disappointment, hope, and all the small emotional currents people leave behind without seeing. Open in a world that rarely teaches careful people how to close the gate. And once you understand that, you stop treating your exhaustion like a mystery. You start treating it like information. Information about what reaches you. Information about what stays with you. Information about how deeply your inner world has been working to protect your outer calm. So the next time you feel drained for reasons you cannot neatly explain, do not rush to dismiss it. Pause long enough to ask what your system has been carrying in silence. Because sometimes the reason you are so tired is not that you did too little. It is that you felt too much, noticed too much, and held too much without realizing it.